We've done the strongest character in My Hero Academia, and then we did the strongest character in Bleach. Now, it's time to face the worst one of them all, Isekai. Yep, you heard that right. From the vast world of reincarnated as a slime, to the dark and grim fantasy of Overlord, strongest character in all of Isekai anime. And by the end of this, our character is going to be so strong, he'll basically be able to challenge every OP Isekai MC out there. And as always, we'll have to set a few rules. First, we can only choose one series, select only one character from that anime, and pinpoint a single trait of said character. Next, the Isekai must have been adapted to the anime because there are probably thousands of light novels and web novels out there. Third, we're limited to 3 abilities and 2 weapons to make it so we just don't have everything. Lastly, the character we've chosen must have been Isekai. Plus, they should not be an NPC and must not have been born in the world the MC was sent to. Not only that, but by the end, our character is going to fight 3 of the strongest characters in Isekai, and most of them are literally considered beyond gods. To start, let's give him a name, and it's going to be Etherean, because it sounds cool and is perfect for a character that's going to go beyond the limitations of any normal human being. Let's begin with our 3 abilities, and you might just be surprised at the first one I've chosen. What is it? Well, it's none other than Subaru's Return by Death. Yep, I literally chose an ability that would technically give Etherean unlimited lives. It allows us to instantly be resurrected after our character dies with its memories intact. We can easily challenge fate itself, and no matter the odds, our character can rinse and repeat until he has everything he needs to finish the job. However, there is a limitation as to just how much we can use it. Return by Death is not fully safe as the place and time where Etherean is resurrected is not specified and, oftentimes, can be quite random. It can also heavily affect our character's mental health, as they can still remember the pain and anguish they felt before dying. Anyway, this still means that we are unbeatable, and it's already a win. Etherean can just die to adapt, until we finally beat whoever it is he's fighting. It's a simple yet overpowered ability that any character would love to have. And that's only one of the 11 traits we'll be talking about, and I promise you, by the end, we're literally going to be so powerful that we can start attacking the animators themselves. This leads us to our second ability. What's going to surprise you is the fact that the character we're going to get it from is actually overpowered, unlike Subaru, who's basically not even close to being the strongest in his own verse. It's going to be from Rimuru, and no, it's not going to be Azathoth. Instead, I chose Shub Niggurath. This skill contains the core and essence of Ooal, the ultimate skill that allowed Rimuru to combine all of the abilities he obtained after the Harvest Festival. Essentially, Shub Niggurath gives us 4 main sub-abilities, and even just 1 was already enough. 4 is just overkill. First is skill creation, which allows us to create brand new skills based on data that comes from our 2 weaker sub-skills called Analyze and Food Chain. Not only that, but we also have skill duplication, where we can copy any skill we analyze. We can also give skills through skill gifting. And finally, we have skill storage, which allows us to store all the data we've analyzed to be used to create new skills for later. This means that we are a walking infinite skill library. We not only broke the skill ceiling, but we figuratively and literally erased it from existence. We can create and copy skills out of thin air, throw them at our opponents, and create even more to overwhelm them. It's considered by some to be the second most overpowered ability in all of Tensura, and I didn't choose Azathoth because I think Shub Niggurath is one of the reasons why Rimuru was so powerful, and that he eventually became a god in his verse. Yet, that isn't the most overpowered ability we have, and I saved the craziest one for last, and I bet some of you might not even have heard of it. Luckily enough, I went deep enough into the Isekai hellhole to discover that the anime had just aired in 2024. What is it? Well, it's called The End of All Things, and it came from Yogi Takato from a series called My Instant Death Ability is So Overpowered. So you already have an idea on what it is just based on that. It's not the instant death ability, but it's something more dangerous. This ability will turn Etherean into the very being that exemplifies the end of all things. He is where things end and non-existence starts. It's so crazy and just absurd to the point that even fate itself cannot harm us. It can't be understood by the human brain, as we have surpassed the infinite higher demons. We can destroy anything and anyone in our path on a multiversal level. This means that no matter who we're up against, they're no match for us, as we are far beyond existence itself. It's even said that it turns the person who has it into an omniscient being. Not that we need that anymore. Anything that gets sent into our realm cannot escape it, even if it's gods or the very being that created the universe. They'll just vanish. Once we touch someone, they'll just be dead, and there's no chance to even recover their soul. Even with just these 3, I think we can solo most of the main characters in other verses. But we're not even halfway through the video, which means Etherean will only grow stronger, especially with our next category, weapons. And I know, there aren't a lot of great weapons in Isekai. I wanted to pick Anos' sword, but it turns out the misfit of the Demon King Academy isn't even Isekai. So I had to search even harder, and that's when I found this. And I think we can still consider it a weapon. It's from the anime Knights and Magic, and it was owned by Ernesti Ichvalier. What is it? Well, it's a literal Gundam, a silhouette knight called the Ikaruga. But why did I choose this one? I took some inspiration from Mechamaru's final battle in JJK, if you watch the anime. It's considered to be the strongest silhouette knight in the series. Not only can it fly and is equipped with 4 gigantic arms and swords, it's 11.2 meters tall, which is as big as a 5-story apartment building. Sure, it doesn't travel in time or shoot out lasers that can blow up planets, but hey, we gotta take what we have. I mean, it's already overpowered too, because when do you ever see a mech this big in Isekai? It's also pretty convenient because it helps us travel a lot faster and look like a badass in the process. Going away from the personal Gundam, we're actually going to have a second weapon that's worth having, and not a weapon that just increases our overall aura. And it just so happens that it's from one of the most popular anime of all time, Sword Art Online. Okay, before we continue, you might say that SAO is not an Isekai since they were stuck in the game, but it technically is. Think about it, that game is an entirely different world with real risks, like if they die in the game, they die in real life. This is a common trope in Isekai, and is the series that made the genre popular. Anyway, what I chose for our second and final weapon is the time-piercing sword, which was owned by Berkoli Herlance. At first, it might just look like a boring old sword, but beneath the surface, it's considered a divine object because it was part of the clock that created time in the underworld itself. That's the reason why it can affect time itself, allowing it to give the user the ability to slash the present and the past. This completely nullifies our opponent's durability stats or any defensive skill they might have. It was so strong, in fact, that the only way Berkoli won in a fight against one of the most overpowered characters in SAO was that he slashed the past, calculating the time and position of his opponent. Now, imagine this. We use Shub Nigarov to analyze and recreate an item creation skill. Using that, we analyze the Ikaruga and the time-piercing sword, combining them together to create a silhouette knight that can slash both the present and the past with 4 humongous time-piercing swords. That's why I chose Ikaruga all along, and definitely not just because it looked cool and I wanted a giant robot. And if all else fails, we can just go back to our innate abilities. Like, if our robot gets destroyed, well, we'll just run towards our opponent as fast as we can and use the end of all things against them to make them disappear off the face of the earth. But beating them with a giant time-altering mech just sounds and looks a lot cooler. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe, or I'll go to your house in an expensive mech and crush your PC. So let's go to Ethereum's racing class. All this time, you might have been wondering where a certain character was going to be placed. I mean, he is considered to be one of the most overpowered in all of Isekai, and honestly, I had a lot of difficulty choosing what I was going to take from him. Well, I happened to randomly get this great idea that Ainz Ooal or Momonga from Overlord should be the character we base our character's race on. Yep, that's because his class is called Overlord, and it has some pretty insane innate buffs and stats that's going to help us out big time. These include the ability to create low tier to high tier undead, acid immunity, despair aura, which can make enemies insane and even has a chance of instant death, high tier magic and physical immunity, unholy protection, and so much more. We even have death immunity, if us being the personification of nothingness wasn't enough. Just by choosing this race, we've added around more than 10 more skills and abilities to our arsenal, most of which are going to help us in our durability and immunity to different types of attacks and magic. But hey, all those abilities wouldn't even matter if we only had 2 brain cells to utilize them, and that's where our intelligence trait comes along. You could already think of a bunch of characters to use here, like Kazuya Soma, who literally made an entire kingdom have a comeback from the brink of ruin, and Shiroe from Log Horizon. However, nothing beats the sibling duo from No Game No Life, Sora and Shiro. They're the 2 best options, but this is where things become hard because I can only choose one of them, which is why the character I have for intelligence is Shiro. Let me explain first before the Sora fans kill me. You see, Sora is still incredibly smart, to the point where he sometimes surprises Shiro, but his intelligence isn't based on pure logic. He knows how to read people. On the other hand, just like one Redditor said, Shiro is a sci-fi computer that can process inhuman amounts of data. To this end, I think Shiro is a better choice for us, because this is pure intelligence we're talking about, and not battle IQ. The more accurate we can process data, the clearer our decision making can be, and the easier we can exploit our enemies from a logical standpoint. Sora himself even said that Shiro is smarter than him, and that's why I chose her. Ethereum would be so smart that even without an OP skill like Rimuru's Raphael, we would still be able to outperform our opponents when it comes to data analysis and logical predictions. And just like before, I said Shiro was our intelligence and not our battle IQ, so that's exactly what we're going to talk about. To make up for Shiro's lack of human understanding, we have to bring in a character who can not only comprehend emotions, but loves to take advantage of them. Who is it? Well, I think no other character is more fitting than the so-called Devil of the Rhine, Tanya von de Guerschhoff herself. If you've watched Tanya the Saga of Evil, then you know what I'm talking about. In her past life, she was literally a salaryman, but once she was thrown into a war-torn world, she immediately excelled with deadly efficiency. I mean, she's been piling up bodies while having the form of a little blonde girl. How crazy is that? What I love about her as well is that she does extremely well under pressure and is ready to take brutal and sometimes completely insane methods just to achieve her goal. I mean, we might be a bit of a psychopath, but hey, she was able to manipulate other characters just by using her appearance. When pushed to a corner, Tanya doesn't also easily give up. Even if she has no arms, she'll do everything she can to think up a plan that involves ripping her opponent's throat off with her teeth. So just imagine what we could do if we pair up with her mindset with an overpowered arsenal. Now all that's left are the three main qualities any character should have: speed, strength, and durability. So let's start with the trickiest one, being speed. You see, there aren't a lot of ultra-fast characters in Isekai. I literally searched for hours and hours, and that's when I finally encountered this guy from Problem Children Are Coming from Another World, aren't they? I kid you not, that's the title of the series. It's a freaking question. Anyway, his name is Sakamaki Izayoi, and he's the MC of said Isekai. This doesn't come from any abilities and is just from his raw stats. He's said to be so fast that he can leave after images, and if he went all out, he could even blow away some houses. Not only that, Izayoi was said to be on par with a member of the Moon Rabbit race, where she reached the edge of the world in just minutes. This means that Etherean is near light speed, but the only difference is that, unlike Black Rabbit, we can maintain that speed and not lose our mobility when we run for long periods of time. Basically, we're the same as the Flash in this sense. We may be a bit slower, but at least we're not only known for being fast. We actually have other abilities. Moving on from our second to the last trait, we have durability. Same as the others, there aren't a lot of OP Isekai characters left. We've basically chosen most of them. And if you thought Mappo from Bofuri was a great pick here, well, Bofuri ain't in Isekai anime. So the only other character I could place here is another psychopath, but this time he has an eye patch and white hair. It's none other than Hajime Nagumo. It might not be shown a lot in the series, but Hajime's innate durability is actually insane. He can survive most attacks that can one-shot any normal human, and even tanked attacks like Dark Goal and Divine Wrath. He's mostly not affected by magical and physical spells, to the point where he only got some minor injuries from a god's apostle in the series. At this point, our durability might not matter anymore, considering just how many buffs we already received from our class trait. And again, we're the personification of nothingness, so we just can't die. This makes me think I might have overdone it a bit. Anyway, we're down to our last trait, which is strength. And just like durability, does it even matter anymore? We literally make anything and anyone we touch disappear from existence itself. But hey, I went with Makoto Misumi from Tsukimichi. Yeah, you think I'm trolling and just chose a normal teenage guy, but this man has the ability to even fight against literal gods in his world. He has superhuman strength, which, if you become serious with it, can most likely be on par with other calamities in his world. Well, we won't be using this that much, which is why I won't dive too deep into it. Just know that we are still incredibly strong no matter what. This leads us to the most interesting part of our video, the fights. With all of our abilities now said and done, Etherean is going to fight against three of the most overpowered characters in Isekai. We'll start from the weakest to strongest, and I say weak, but they're still insanely OP. Now, what better way to start this battle than to warm us up with the Overlord himself, Ainz. Of course, the characters we're going to be fighting are the ones we've chosen, because come on, I mentioned a ton of times that they were the strongest. This particular fight with Ainz is a tricky one because he's going to be prepared. He's probably going to set up some insane divine class item that would imprison us in another dimension or something, and that's going to be annoying. However, Ainz is outmatched when it comes to pure firepower. Just by using Shub Nigoroth, we can overwhelm him with spells he's never even imagined before from a faraway distance. He might look strong in the series, but in front of us, he's just a normal mage that's weak to physical attacks. If it comes to close quarters combat, I say we'll just use Ikaruga with the 4 time-piercing swords, and no matter what type of defense or immunity magic he uses, it'll be nullified and we can deal massive amounts of damage. If he can't die because of his death immunity, then the easy answer to that is that we'll just use the end of all things. Don't get me wrong, Ainz is still pretty strong, and he might have a lot more tricks up his sleeves, but no matter what he does, we always have a counter, and it's safe to say we outclass him in any way. Now, this is where things get interesting. Rimuru is hundreds if not thousands of times stronger than Ainz, just because of the overwhelming amount of overpowered skills he has in his arsenal. Not to mention, in the light novel, Rimuru has ascended to become a true dragon, and then became an ultimate slime. His abilities can affect space-time itself and transcend dimensions, and has the ability to use imaginary collapse, the very same technique that was used to create the entire universe of Tensura, which is insane! This is why it's even harder to fight against Rimuru, because even with all the abilities we have, we only beat him in one aspect, and that's our abilities. I haven't mentioned it a lot before, but we have Return by Death. Even if Rimuru manages to use Rimuru's imaginary collapse and possibly destroy the universe itself, we have Return by Death to help us out. We can just die and die and die, and after 5 or so attempts, we might have him cornered. Pair this up with our supercomputer intelligence and psychopathic battle IQ, then I'm sure we can find a way to catch him off guard and touch him with the end of all things. We'll go beyond his perception of reality and logic because, well, if he doesn't stick with the rules, why should we? I think we die a couple of times and just come back and beat him. Last but not least, after Ainz and Rimuru, we're up against possibly not only the strongest being in all of Isekai, but in the entirety of anime. But what happens when we both have the same ability? Both Etherean and Yogiri can use the end of all things, and when non-existence and non-existence collide, will we just create a phenomenon so powerful that it will erase reality itself? There are so many questions as to what can happen, and honestly, I don't know what the result of this fight will be. But what do you think? Is our character overpowered enough to defeat the 3 characters, especially Yogiri? What would be your choice when making the most overpowered Isekai character of all time? Share your thoughts in the comments, and as always, if you like this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more videos like this one.